what's good, self-direct investors? I hope you're all doing great, and I want to welcome you back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Jordan. I'm the mind behind Make More Capital, and today we're coming at you with a midweek update in the world of cannabis. Now, before we jump in, if you enjoy this video or you learned something, please just leave a like on it, as it really helps out my channel. And of course, if you want to learn how to take advantage of this generational investment opportunity, subscribe below so that you don't miss any future videos. And there's plenty of content for you to go back, rewatch, and educate yourself with. I've tried to put all the news and facts in one place so that you can watch episodes over time to learn about the evolution of the industry, identify top companies that you keep seeing pop up, and take advantage whenever you feel ready if you wish to do so. And today we're going to start with this NewJersey.com article published as of September 18th. And from my understanding, this is the most recent quote that we have from Senator Cory Booker discussing the possibility of actually passing a SAFE Plus during the lame duck session, which is after the election in November and before the new party winners take over in September. And so this article titled, "Stalled Bill to Allow Banking Services for Legal Weed Businesses Could Get New Life as Talks Heat Up," as it should, because it's good policy and it should have been passed a long time ago. But regardless, just to catch you guys up and bring you up to speed, negotiations on legislation to let cannabis businesses get bank loans, accept credit cards, and open checking accounts are focusing on what restorative justice measures can be added without jeopardizing the 60 Senate votes needed to enact the bill. So this has been the script all along. Obviously, the Dems have had the votes for a year and a half now, but they keep delaying because they want more and more social justice equity provisions added. But regardless, proponents have acknowledged that the Secure, Fair and Enforcement or SAFE Banking Act, opposed previously by Senator Cory Booker and Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer of New York, won't reach the Senate floor without addressing their concerns. Of course, that's exactly where we're at. Booker told NJ Advanced Media, "We're at a point now where most people understand that SAFE Banking bill as written is not enough to pass the Senate." Actually, that's a lie, but they're just playing politics. They're going to have to add equity issues and fairness issues into the banking provisions and do some restorative justice as well. The question is, how much can we get done? And so negotiations on the bill are getting much more substantive, said Morgan Fox, political director for NORML, which we like to hear, the National Organization for the Reform of Cannabis Laws. There are real conversations about what an incremental package would really look like. It's moved beyond just the SAFE Banking Act and is now a conversation that is a little more broad. And so topics being discussed include all of this here, so you can just pause to read for a bit more. Main thing I want to take you to is just down to the bottom to highlight this last quote, especially from Booker himself. "Congress is scheduled to return to Washington after Election Day, and Booker said that the lame duck session would be the time to enact cannabis legislation. There is a consensus growing in the Senate that gives me confidence that it's very likely in the lame duck session we can get something significant done," he said. And this is a direct quote from Booker himself. And while it is possible that he's still just playing politics and making soft promises that he doesn't plan to keep, we'd rather hear this shift in tone and sentiment from Booker now than to hear that he's still opposed to any sort of incremental reform. And so if the Senate acts, whatever they pass in the Senate will get passed in the House, said Safe Banking's chief sponsor, our favorite Rep. Ed Perlmutter out of Colorado. So I wanted to share that most recent sentiment shift from Booker, and let's hope that does mean some sort of foreshadowing for later on this year. Well, we got this one from Marijuana Moment, as apparently key congressional committee will vote on cannabis record sealing and other drug policy reform bills this week. And so the vote is supposed to be on Wednesday, and the move comes as talks intensify about drafting a package of cannabis reforms that could potentially be enacted this year. And so could this be piggybacked off of what Booker was saying? Possibly, but I'll report on this after the fact because it's, again, just a key congressional committee. It's not like it's the Senate actually doing something serious, which we would like to see. And so we'll report on this once we get more info later on in the week on Sunday. But with that, also just sharing that the momentum is building and the growing support continues, as Tom Mango highlights that the National Association of State Treasurers reaffirmed a resolution calling on Congress to pass cannabis banking legislation. So more on this story, but again, another tweet: during today's State Treasurers annual business meeting, state treasurers from across the country agreed to renew a resolution in advancing legislation allowing legal cannabis states the ability to safely participate in the national banking system, as this should have been passed a long time ago. SAFE Banking Act must pass. So thank you, state treasurers, for, again, just making this claim, spreading the awareness and demanding that this gets passed, because obviously it'll make your states much safer for the citizens. You get cash off the streets and reduce the amount of robberies at these dispensaries as well. And so on top of that, happy to share that Tom Engel has also shared this recent story that Students for Sensible Drug Policy, apparently, and Last Prisoner Project, they've recently announced this as of September 20th, but it seems like an active in-person initiative, which is great because it sort of seems like we're going to need this in order to see something get done. Announced in October 24th, nationwide day of mass action, including civil disobedience at campaign offices to pressure President Joe Biden to follow through on his campaign pledges to release cannabis prisoners. And while I'm a big fan of this call to action to get people actively out and peacefully and constructively protesting to hold these lawmakers accountable and spread awareness, I really just hope that this remains peaceful, because when they say including civil disobedience disobedience at campaign offices. Well, unfortunately, in the past, when the Dems or the Biden administration have claimed that peaceful protests have been peaceful, they have not been peaceful. And we've seen it time and time again where the Dems use agent provocateurs. Not going to say the Republicans have never used it in the past, but right now, who holds the power? The Dems, and they have used agent provocateurs in order to turn these things into less than peaceful. And so again, I just hope it can remain peaceful. Otherwise, they could use that as something to try and make cannabis look like something that causes violence, which again, it doesn't. And so again, it's all about perception in the game of politics. Hope that it doesn't end up badly. And again, I hope that this can be done peacefully and spread awareness as they intend for. And so with some markets, just wanted to share this article from Chicago Tribune. Unfortunately, it's behind a paywall, but I just wanted to bring the snippet up to highlight a few little points because Chicago Tribune, this one, as of September 19th, saying Midwest cannabis, of the 2 local states where recreational weed is legal, Michigan outpaces Illinois in many areas. As apparently Michigan sales are now outpacing Illinois by a long shot. And why is that? Well, I believe that Michigan is winning because instead of focusing on equity, they focused on equality, which is what we all actually want, providing equal access to opportunity for as many people that want to start a business as possible, which is what most people think equity is, but equity is not. Equity is equal outcome, eventually making everyone poorer over time versus equality, which is equal access to opportunity. And so, little rant there, but just wanted to share my 2 cents. I know it's behind a paywall, you might not be able to read it, but nonetheless, just highlighting why Michigan is actually doing better than Illinois, less of a focus on equity and more of building the industry from the ground up with entrepreneurs that can actually build at scale, providing more equal access to opportunity to as many people as possible. And so, big news out of California, though, we got this one, so thank you, Graham Farrar, for sharing. Good to see the focus on access from Gavin Newsom. Lots of talk about oversupply, not nearly enough about the under demand, 2 sides of the same coin. I do agree. The main solution to the problems that California has is to open as many legal dispensary access sale points as possible to help try and combat the illicit market. They should have 6 to 10 times stores that they do at the moment, but regardless, seems like they don't want to solve that problem yet. So in the meantime, just happy to share that Governor Gavin Newsom has signed a number of cannabis-related bills that were sent to his desk a few weeks back. And so of those bills, a number of them, full list of cannabis-related bills signed by the governor can be found below, relating to cannabis crimes, resentencing, cannabis packaging, beverages, cannabis and cannabis products, animals, and veterinary medicine, integrated cannabis vaporizer, packaging, labeling, advertisement, and marketing, cannabis state temporary event licenses, venues licensed by the Department of Alcoholic Beverage Control for unsold inventory, discrimination in employment use of cannabis, cannabis insurance providers, California Cannabis Tax Fund spending reports, Medicinal Cannabis Patients' Right of Access Act, and cannabis interstate agreements. And so lots done there. Not sure how it's necessarily going to affect the industry or how it's going to help them combat the illicit market, but I imagine there is a lot that these bills will help address. Haven't had the time to go through them all. But again, here's another summary of all of the cannabis bills that Newsom signed on Sunday, so I'm not going to read through them all, but going to just let you pause to read if you wanted to read through. But the first 2, Caballero's measure would set the stage to allow for interstate cannabis commerce from California to and from other legal states, contingent on an official assurance that the activity would not put the state at risk of federal enforcement action. So this requires some sort of federal change to allow sort of interstate commerce, but that seems to be very helpful for the industry once that would come. While Quirk's bill would make it unlawful for an employer to discriminate against a person in hiring, termination, or any term of conditional or employment, or otherwise penalize a person solely because of off-duty cannabis use. And so this one is huge. Protecting people, being allowed to use cannabis in your spare time off work, like people consume wine, like people consume beer. And so that's a big one. It would eliminate employment-based THC testing with exceptions for certain positions, such as federal employees, of course, of those working in construction. So more if you just want to pause to read from SB 1326 down to AB 1706, and then we'll go AB 1885 down to AB 2925. And then from AB 1646, and there's a bit more here. So you can pause to read, or you can grab the whole link below if you wanted to check it out. So with that, just some more state news. Thank you, Todd Harrison, for sharing this one, what Beacon has to say on Florida. And so the Sunshine State update, patient count growth continues outperforming recent averages. And so while we did see a dip in the summer coming back up, and it dipped again over Labor Day weekend, good to see that at least Beacon sees this as a good sign and that the growth potential is still massive in Florida. So happy to report that. Well, as we move along, Todd Harrison shares this normal.org blog article as polls show support for 2022 legalization initiatives, and recent polls have been conducted in these states that have a ballot in November, and apparently 59% of Maryland voters said that they will vote a yes, or they believe in legalizing adult use cannabis, while 62% of those in Missouri said that they also believe that they would support. And so obviously if these numbers are accurate, then it seems like both states will vote an overwhelming yes. While Arkansas, it seems like there's a bit more pressure to get that on the ballot as there's pending lawsuits, I do believe, but regardless, those in Arkansas, 67% do believe in having a medical cannabis market as I do believe that that's what they're going to be voting for on the ballot. So a lot of more information in this whole blog article, but just wanted to highlight these 3 states that are going to be key in November, as they will likely have a ballot initiative, and the voters will decide, in the next few months. And so regardless, you can grab the whole link below if you wanted to go through all the states, but just happy to report that progress. And so with that, some more news from Minnesota NORML as well, as apparently out of Minnesota, only 36% oppose legalizing cannabis, according to this Minnesota poll, which would mean in the opposite, 64% obviously agree with legalizing adult use. And so we, the people of Minnesota, want the government to step off. And we know that Minnesota is in talks of potentially developing a bill. We reported on that last week, I think, or I reported on that. So regardless, just good to see more states with larger populations and good medical programs, obviously seeing the benefits of legalizing for adult use sooner than later. And so just more polls, but happy to share that it's all positive and for cannabis. Todd Harrison, thanks for sharing this one. 2 in 3 Pennsylvania voters support cannabis legalization. New poll shows amid key political races. 66% of Pennsylvanians back adult use legalization, an 8% increase since voters were asked last time in April 2021. Well, this one is out of Texas, so thanks, Todd, for sharing this one. Texas voters support legalizing cannabis 51% to 28%, and back medical cannabis 67% to 21%. So again, Texas, a massive state. This would be a huge opportunity when this eventually comes online. 29 million people. That will be another event probably in a few years down the line. That will be a spectacle in itself, but just happy to share that people in Texas are shifting their views and more positive towards cannabis. And so with that, Curaleaf shares, "Hi Siri, please play Allentown by Billy Joel," one of my favorites, one of the mans who inspired me to play piano as well. But just happy to share on behalf of Curaleaf, we're excited to announce the opening of Curaleaf Allentown, their 18th dispensary in PA and their 137th dispensary, nationwide. And so more information on that below if you wanted to read the press release. But with that, we got this very timely interview again from the Dales Report. So thank you, the Dales Report, for your reporting and all that you do, and of course for sharing this news with us. The Dales Report caught up with Curaleaf Executive Chairman Boris Jordan in Chicago, who continues to believe SAFE Plus adjoining legislation will pass in the lame duck session of Congress. So far, the capital markets isn't buying it, but we sincerely hope that Boris's take proves prophetic. Well, I do apologize, my pronunciation of that was pathetic, but main thing to highlight before I play this clip is that Boris is one of the few on the ground in this industry from day one that has helped build it from the ground up. And so while a lot of people can talk and say a lot of things, there are a few people that we take so seriously or that we want to listen to, especially Boris, who's cautiously optimistic, but a very successful businessman with 30 years of experience. And so while he might not be right all the time, he does try to be as cautious when making sort of statements or claims that he shares with us, as he all wants us in this industry to succeed much like he does. And he's got so much of his capital already invested in this industry. He's not backing out. He's optimistic. So I do encourage you to watch the whole interview, but just for this clip, let him take it away. So.
We had you on, 6 weeks ago, early August. Here we are now in Chicago. You made some comments, talk about safe banking. We're heading into midterms, a little bit closer. You basically said a lot of the contacts and lobbyists that you were speaking to that you feel strongly that it will pass. Update on how you think things are progressing. Is it still like the same sentiment? Like, how are you feeling about all that?
So, there's a recess up until this week.
Yeah.
So they're all back now.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, my whole team is in Washington, D.C. as we speak. We're getting fresh feedback every hour. So they're meeting this week with today and tomorrow with staffers from Booker's office and with Schumer's office. So we should have some more progress. But I want to repeat what I said earlier. I think we're the closest we've ever been to getting SAFE passed. SAFE plus hope is what I think it's going to be.
SAFE plus
and
hope.
Right now, it's literally the next 2 months are absolutely critical. We're asking everybody to send checks to the USCC, which is our lobby organizations. We're asking investors. We're asking companies. We just had a big meeting with all the CEOs of the MSOs here at the conference. Everybody's pledged to help out. It's not big. We need $25,000, $50,000 checks to try to get this thing over the line.
So this is your weekly reminder that no one knows what is going to happen, so plan accordingly for your own situation. And all I can do is speak for myself, so this is my opinion, not advice, but I would just rather be invested if SAFE were to pass than to be stuck on the sideline thinking now is not the time when SAFE actually were to pass and then you're stuck playing catch-up. But kind of ironic that the essential thing that they need to do is get money sent in to oppose the lobbying forces that have kept SAFE delayed thus far. Big Pharma paying Schmuck Schumer about $220K to delay SAFE for the last 15 months, which he's done. And so hopefully this will be enough capital to sway it in the other direction and get SAFE passed, especially because, when you don't solve the problem, it only exacerbates. There's been a lot of blood on Schumer's hand, and it'd be better now, better late than never for them to get something done and actually keep some of their campaign promises and have a little dignity. And so with that, a few more stories. MJ Biz Daily highlights marijuana MSO Vireo Health, which is a part of Green Growth Holdings, which has been purchased recently by Vireo Holdings, sues Minnesota over new edibles law. And so marijuana multi-state company Vireo Health, one of 2 licensed medical cannabis operators in Minnesota, filed a lawsuit against the state alleging that a new law allowing hemp-derived edible sales unfairly discriminates against MJ-derived edibles makers, which it technically does, but sometimes when laws get passed like this quickly, those people who the law benefits can capitalize until something changes and it gets corrected. But a number of state agencies and officials are named in the complaint, including Attorney General Keith Ellison and Jan Malcolm, Commissioner of the Health Department, Health, Eden Prairie TV station KMSP reported. I'd love to see Vireo firing shots like this, but get this because it's quite interesting. Last spring, state officials passed a law allowing unlicensed companies to sell hemp-derived edibles containing THC to be sold in grocery and convenience stores. So basically anyone can create hemp-derived edibles with THC and sell them from grocery stores and convenience stores. Crazy, right? But under the law, which took effect July 1, Vireo and Green Thumb, which produce medical cannabis-derived edibles, licensed, and they do it safely and productively, are restricted to selling products to patients registered in the state's MMJ program. And so these two companies that follow the guidelines and sell medical cannabis cannot even take part and sell these hemp-derived edibles, leaving a massive space for other random people to jump in the market and make money, but Vireo and Green Thumb are stuck there like, what the fuck? So the law, which took effect July 1, has attracted a number of out-of-state brands and retailers to Minnesota to capitalize. And so the lawsuit argues that MMJ companies such as Vireo also should be permitted to sell its products in mainstream outlets, and that there is no rational basis to create separate legal requirements for sellers of medical cannabis-derived edibles like Vireo and sellers of hemp-derived edibles, which is it's very true. They have a case, so hopefully they can get this switched sooner than later, so Vireo and Green Thumb will also benefit from selling these hemp-derived edibles. As further, the lawsuit argues that MMJ companies like Minnesota are held to higher compliance and lab testing standards 100%, even though their products are safer. And so again, the safer products cannot sell through convenience stores and grocery stores, although, random sellers of hemp-derived edibles can. It's kind of crazy. So without any rational basis, Minnesota law treats medical cannabis-derived edibles very differently from identical hemp-derived edibles. The complaint notes the irrational discrimination against Vireo violates the Minnesota Constitution, which I do agree that they have a case. We'll see how that plans out, but I just would hope that this would finish, or this case gets settled faster and sooner than later, just so that obviously Vireo, which is Green Growth Holdings, and Green Thumb can take advantage and start making money from that as well. But another news, Cresco Labs' best-selling flagship brand, Cresco, launches in Florida. And so happy to report that yesterday, as of the 20th, Cresco announced today the expansion of its flagship brand, Cresco, to Florida. The multi-market leading vape and concentrate brands arrived with a robust lineup of live resin products available exclusively at all Sunnyside dispensaries. And so they're obviously happy to get this in there, as Cresco's LLR is the #1 best-selling vape cart in Illinois and Pennsylvania. Its live resin concentrates are #1 in PA and #2 in Illinois as of the most recent data in the second quarter of 2022, according to BDSA. So there's more information here, but obviously Cresco sees a lot of success with their live resin in other markets, and so they wanted to get it into Florida sooner than later so that medical patients can get access to it and hopefully drive sales of that Cresco brand as well. So good job, Cresco. While Trulieve continues to expand, or not expand necessarily, but reopening into a larger location to serve more potential patients. As Trulieve announces opening of Relocated Edgewater Dispensary in Florida. So new dispensary expands patient access to medical cannabis, and the grand opening specials are available. And so this is actually opening today, opening at 9 a.m., so it would have opened an hour and a half ago. But essentially, Trulieve is excited to open our newly relocated dispensary that offers a larger showroom with more amenities. As said Kim Rivers, CEO of Trulieve, our company is driven by a commitment to provide tailored, high-quality care and exceptional customer experience. And this new location will help us reach those goals, as the larger and bigger locations you can get will help set you up for 2024, pending the success of Florida's adult use ballot initiative, which Trulieve is helping fund with $10 million thus far. And I think it's going to have a big role to play, and we'll hopefully see that in 2024. And so with that, another one from Todd Harrison, just sharing this one from abcnews.go.com. Link below if you wanted to read more into it. But there was an insider Q&A with Roy Bingham, CEO of BDSA, one of the data companies that we get a lot of our data from that I reference on this, that's also used throughout the industry. But Colorado-based research firm BDSA projects legal U.S. cannabis sales will jump 8% this year to $27 billion. And so this is a jump of 8% still, when New Jersey waited almost 4 months into the year to launch their adult use program with only 12 dispensaries, and now they're up to 18 or 19 dispensaries. So again, super limited, but imagine how much this can jump once New York comes online, once New Jersey, opens hundreds of more dispensaries, as they should, to properly supply demand, once Connecticut comes online, once Vermont comes online, once Rhode Island comes online. This number was a lot smaller than we anticipated. Fortunately, most of the delays are behind us, and we should see a much bigger number next year, pending New York actually launching on time, as they say they will. And so with that, I wanted to share this interesting graphic from Zain. So thank you, Zain Stedman, for sharing this one. Wanted to take a step back and dissect the retail aspect of US MSOs a bit. Quick thoughts here, and as always, I'm curious if anyone else has dug in on the benchmarking and what the takeaways are. But so just an interesting take, retail breakout across MSOs. And so we see second quarter 2022 sales split. We can see retail in dark blue, so the amount of sales made up of retail, and the number of sales made up of wholesale in light blue. And so we can see all the MSOs across the board and the percentage of retail sales, how much it makes up of their revenue. Well, we've got number of active doors. Obviously, the dispensaries open for each MSO. Well, we've got enterprise value divided by 2022 estimates and sales, each of the MSOs. Well, right here, it just shows the annualized retail sales per door. But then just note, this is defined as annualized retail sales for the quarter divided by average number of active doors. And so source is apparently Adam Finance and company filings. So again, thank you, Zain, for just putting this together, because it's another interesting look at all the other MSOs and different ways that some MSOs might be doing better than others, and just different visuals to help us get in different information to help us make better investment decisions. So thank you, Zain. And with that, I wanted to share this one from seekingalpha.com, a more contrarian view of MSOs. This one comes from James V. Baker, an outspoken contrarian on Twitter, but he shares an update of an article he wrote a few months back, but life expectancy declining at some MSO companies. As obviously the macroeconomic trends get a little bit shakier, it makes it harder for some of these MSOs to get cheaper access to capital that they got in the past. And so summarize, interest rates are increasing, credit is becoming difficult to obtain, MSO share prices have plummeted, cannabis companies have historically relied on external financing, organic growth has slowed, and increased competition has put downward pressures on SKU prices. But fortunately, New Jersey has launched, and so that should help some of the MSOs that at least have a footprint in New Jersey, help them make some revenue that they can convert to cash flow as opposed to having to raise more debt. I'm thinking of Vireo Wellness mostly with this. But regardless, just wanted to highlight that. And so I'm not going to go through the whole article. You can obviously grab the link and read through it. But just going to show the companies that he thinks are most at risk. As MSOs with the highest default risk, they've got Air Wellness, Forefront Ventures, Jushi, TerraSend, and Vireo. And so, again, not going to go through it all, but I do recommend you grab the link below if you just wanted to read through it, because it is worth reading to consider. But again, I do think, if a lot of the headwinds like New Jersey, New York weren't set to come online in the next 6 months, I think that this was a greater risk. But because that should offset some of the delays that we've seen for the last year and a half, I'm not as concerned, obviously, as the contrarian guy is. But what do you think? Let me know in the comments. And last few stories before we finish up. Tom Engel sharing as Apple's health app update lets users indicate if they use cannabis to help identify potential interactions with medications they take. And so again, love to see Apple at least leading the push in big tech as normalizing cannabis compared to any of the other platforms. Listing it alongside federally legal alcohol and tobacco is another example of the mainstreaming of cannabis in big tech. And so slowly but surely, we're not seeing it from a lot of big tech firms, but at least Apple is doing most of the normalization of cannabis in the industry. So love to see this. More on this article below if you wanted to check it out. So with that, we got news out of Germany. So thanks, Todd, for sharing this one. As Germany's finance minister said the country will legalize cannabis by next year, which we do like to hear reiterated, as this was to be expected. However, a good reminder that the FTC said in July that it was unlikely the law on cannabis legalization would be enforced before 2024. And just remember, this takes a long ass time. And so, from my understanding, Germany plans to finish writing up the legislation by the end of this year, which would be great because we would love to see November and December, along with cannabis winning another election, Germany saying, yeah, we have the legislation ready to legalize cannabis in 2023. And that's going to make a lot of people think, oh, legal cannabis is coming. But they don't know that, passing a bill and signing it into law in 2023, which Germany plans to do, doesn't necessarily mean that the market is officially launched and that it starts. And that would mean that we have to wait until 2024. But so wouldn't that be fascinating if, similar to Canada, we see press releases of Germany saying that they're going to legalize into 2023, and we see a big bull run up until the day that the bill gets signed until much like we saw in Canada. And then from that point on, we start to fall back a little bit. Again, I'm just sharing my 2 cents there. Don't know if that's going to happen. That would be fascinating, but just happy to share that Germany is taking steps in the right direction as they are planning this long process of finally legalizing for adult use. And so with that, a few other stories from Benzinga. One that was very interesting. Not going to get into it, but just sharing this obvious, not so obvious, but now obvious sort of side effect of legalizing cannabis or ending cannabis reform. As weed legalization has led to more cannabis consumption, but also decreased consumption of almost every other drug. And whether it's more harmful or less harmful, I don't think other drugs are more harmful than cannabis when we look at its actual effects on the body. You might get stoned, but doesn't actually mean it's dangerous for you. And so this is fascinating because obviously more legalization, more cannabis consumption will likely decrease the consumption of alcohol and other hard drugs, opioids, and other substances that keep people hooked into addiction. And so regardless, happy to share this interesting read if you wanted to go through it below. And lastly, just wanted to share this one from Transitional Psychiatry, another study finding some interesting results as children and adolescents with ASD treated with CBD-rich cannabis exhibit significant improvements, particularly in social symptoms, an open-label study, which is kind of fascinating. So could cannabis make you a better communicator? Who'd have thought? These findings suggest that treatment with CBD-rich cannabis can yield improvements, particularly in social communication abilities, which were visible even when using standardized clinical assessments. Additional double-blind, placebo-controlled studies utilizing standardized assessments are highly warranted for substantiating these findings. But regardless, nonetheless, I find that very interesting. So you can read more of the abstract, or you can grab this whole link below, as this is from nature.com. But nonetheless, just happy to report more studies and more positive finding as momentum continues to build. And that is it for today's episode, folks. So I want to thank you so much for tuning in, and I really hope you got some value out of it. What did you think of the stories mentioned? Let me know in the comments if you have any questions or suggestions, and I'd be happy to address them. But besides that, if you enjoyed this video and you learned something, please just leave a like on it. Subscribe below if you don't want to miss any future videos, and I will catch you on Sunday for This Week in Cannabis News. Have a great week, everybody.